Hey everyone, Kyle once again, and welcome back to another Christmas movie review. And this time I'm reviewing another classic, which I also enjoy growing up as well. And for this one, I'll review the first one though, but I'll take the second one sometime down the road because this is being the spirit of Christmas, So let's talk about the first one for now. But yeah, this one I would say is another classic, and like Home Alone, what more can be said about this film that hasn't already been said before? So there's no reason for me to go into too much in details about this one, though, but because a lot of people have talked about this film a lot of times. And that is the classic of Gremlins, which I also want to talk about for quite some time as well. Gremlins from 1984. It's a comedy horror film set around the time of Christmas as well. I love Gremlins. Really do. Well directed by the combination team, especially directed by Joe Dante, also directed one of my favorite ones right there as well, Small Soldiers, which he also directed the original 78 film Piranha, Inner Space, The Burbs, of course we later directed Looney Tunes Back in Action. But Joe Dante though, yeah, I love Gremlins, and of course you have other combination teams. You have Steven Spielberg as the executive producer on this film, along with Frank Marshall, Kathleen Kennedy, and speaking with Home Alone, this film was also written by Chris Columbus. Like I said, he directed Home Alone. Chris Columbus helped write the film as well, and it's really well directed, well edited, and great score by my favorite film composer, who also went on right there for Deep Rising, and also up there for Congo as well, Jerry Goldsmith. And not to mention, speaking of, Small Soldiers as well. I love Jerry Goldsmith, my all-time favorite composer. I love many of his scores. He always has such a unique style how he did scores for his films. Like I said, with Small Soldiers, Congo, Deep Rising, this film, Star Trek The Motion Picture, even Star Trek First Contact as well, which he also did on Insurrection, in Nemesis as well. What was the Jerry Goldsmith? Oh yeah, the Mummy, Air Force One, The Shadow. I also watched our review 2 as well. What else? Just many other films. For Patton, Rudy, even The Medicine Man. I think the films that Jerry Goldsmith also did as well. Oh yeah, even The Swarm, which I reviewed a while back. Even though it's not loved, but it's pretty much hated by a lot of people though. But I like The Swarm with Michael Caine. Jerry Goldsmith did a score for that film. I enjoyed. But yeah, Jerry Goldsmith just a lot of scores. Even the Looney Tunes Back in Action as well. But yeah, I miss Jerry Goldsmith. He's my favorite my favorite music composer. I love Jerry Goldsmith. He did a great job with the score, which he can continue on the sequel as well. So yeah, good directing by Joe Dante, written by Chris Columbus. The great score by Jerry Goldsmith. The amazing special effects, the practical effects is done really well done, and the cast I enjoyed too as well. You have Zach Galligan, who plays Billy, which bonds with Gizmo. Zach Galligan, he didn't go on to do much though. He did this film, the sequel. He was in Waxwork 1 and 2, which I like both those movies. But he didn't go on to do much later on though, sadly though. Phoebe Cates, most remember starting from Fast Times in Richmond High. Especially for her famous scene where she does a woo with Judge Reinhold's fantasy. And speaking of Judge Reinhold, he's in this as well. You also know some notable faces. Well, you have Dick Miller, who is basically a regular starring in most of Joe Dante's movies. Like when he was in Piranha, he's like, "What about the goddamn piranhas?" Or in Small Soldiers as Joe Joe is the guy who helped in the company, who lent Alan the toys. Toys is hell. Or even he was in the first Terminator as a guy at the gun store, which Arnold was getting guns, and he goes and shoots him. Yeah, Dick Miller. Yeah, he also is now passed away as well. I forgot to mention. Yeah, Joe Dante also helped direct The Howling. Yeah, I forgot to mention The Howling. I like The Howling all right. It's not one of my favorite werewolf movies though. But Dick Miller, he had a role in that as well. Forgot to mention that, but I just wasn't big on The Howling. I like it all right though, but it just wasn't. It was not one of my favorite werewolf movies. But Dick Miller is in it as well. You have Corey Feldman from Friday the 13th Part 4, The Goonies, The Lost Boys, which is quite funny enough. Though he's in it for just a little bit though, but then he disappears really enough. I'm like, okay. Because probably then the following year, Steven Spielberg, Chris Columbus, also Corey Feldman together with The Goonies. Then the year after this, Jonathan Banks, from Flipper, Under Siege 2, later starring the show Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. He's a guy you would probably recognize. So Jonathan Banks, me and my brother also recognize him. Yeah, he's in this as well. So I like Jonathan Banks. So yeah, and what can I say about the character of Gizmo? And he's actually if people don't know about this though, is actually voiced by Howie Mandel. Howie Mandel of the game show Deal or No Deal and host on America's Got Talent. Yeah, really enough, Howie Mandel voices Gizmo. And I think he did a really good job as voicing Gizmo. Of course, growing up, I didn't know, but years later realized, oh, really, that's Howie Mandel. He voices Gizmo. Howie Mandel of Deal or No Deal, America's Got Talent. He did a good job as voicing Gizmo. And of course, Frank Welker, who's done countless voice work in films and TV shows. He voices Stripe, the evil gremlin. But yeah, the voice cast of especially Howie Mandel, Frank Welker as Gizmo and Stripe. The human cast, I thought really did a good job as well. Especially on Zach Galligan, especially the bond between him and Gizmo. Phoebe Case, I thought she did fine as well. She does help out quite a bit though. It was cool. What was it? The mother who later on towards the end of the movie, blah, 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 going full on rampage, taking out the gremlins. That was a fun scene, and especially on the destruction of the gremlins. Going terrorizing this small town. Really, it was really fun. I was like, oh wow. Some of the creative ways of killing people, but the Gremlins, they're even fun to watch as well. There's like a bit of horror comedy in there. And then the three, especially if people know about the rules with the Gremlins, keep them out of sunlight, don't put water on them, and don't feed them after midnight. And speaking of, also, you get cameo appearances from, specifically with Jerry Goldsmith. You get a cameo appearance by Jerry Goldsmith. He's a guy in a phone booth, talking, phoning home, ET reference, and even a cameo appearance by Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg, he's just riding on a bicycle, just riding. Hey, it was cool. It was cool to see Steven Spielberg, also with Jerry Goldsmith as well. And the character Gizmo, really, really cute character of Gizmo, really adorable looking. And when you get even is put with the evil gremlin Stripe, which I think even originally they were going to put a Gizmo as Stripe, which that would have been a completely different kind of thing. I think the film would not have been quite as good if it was the other way around, which I think is for the better though. Because Gizmo, how can you make him the evil gremlin, the cute little guy, and especially the practical amazing effects on all the gremlins and just on Gizmo, Stripe, really great, awesome effects from the time it was from 1984. Excuse me. But and it's how all the gremlins just going around terrorizing this small town, and everyone getting a little thing of just to help defeating the gremlins. It was particularly Zach Galligan, him fighting Stripe. Stripe has a chainsaw, and there's the mom, going all out rampage on taking out gremlins. And I forgot to mention Judge Reinhold, Fast Times at Richmond High, Phoebe Cates, but Judge Reinhold is in this as well. In which he's in it too, but I think also one part he also disappears. Which, speaking of, there is a delayed scene where he gets locked in a safe, which probably thinking, okay, he's locked in a safe, maybe die suffocation, because you get locked in a safe, there's no air in there. But he doesn't. But if it wasn't for that delayed scene, he also, like Corey Feldman, he also disappears. I mean, I don't know what's going on with that though, but growing up, didn't think much about it though, but you see watching it now, it's like, oh, where did he go, and where did Corey Feldman go? But I like Judge Reinhold though, as an actor. Of course, from Beverly Hills Cop, even in the Santa Claus movies, of course, like I said, Fast Times at Richmond High. I like Judge Reinhold, especially Beverly Hills Cop. Police, you're under arrest. And then the Tagger saying, "You do that again, I'll shoot you myself." But what can I say about Gremlins? What has been said but before, and even when towards the finale, when all the Gremlins are at the theater, they're watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and then they all blow up the theater. Which that's like, that was crazy. And towards the end of the fight with Gizmo and Stripe, Gizmo pulling up pulling the shades and killing Stripe with the sunlight, and it was satisfying. Which I know that the Zach Galligan was also the part that had, it was cut. Him fighting also with Gizmo to defeat Stripe, but it was mostly the method to Gizmo. Which it was cool to see because Gremlin fighting Gremlin. But just what can I say? Like I said, Gremlins. I really love Gremlins. Joe Dante, great job, and also handling with Steven Spielberg, Chris Columbus. Like I said, I love the score by Jerry Goldsmith. The cast like Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, Hoyt Axton, who also plays the father as well. And just like I say, gets a well directing some atmosphere of the small town, showing how it takes place during the. It was on Christmas Eve, get the Christmas theme with it, and some really good looking shots of atmosphere look into it, give it a little bit of the horror element, especially in the dark place like the shop or whatever, and how, especially where the Gremlins are going to town and killing everybody in this small town. So especially with some well done effects and good looking shots of the town, especially afterwards, the aftermath. But if anyone has seen this film, I recommend you check out Gremlins. I strongly recommend you check out Gremlins. It's fun, and especially when you fall in love with the cute character of Gizmo. And if anybody doesn't know, he's voiced by Howie Mandel. If anyone loves the shows of America's Got Talent and Deal or No Deal, just saying. But yeah, I love Gremlins. For the good job on the cast, the crew of Joe Dante, Steven Spielberg, Jerry Goldsmith. I love Chris Columbus, and especially the great, awesome special effects, the practical effects, especially with Gizmo and Stripe and the other Gremlins. Good, especially good effects and everywhere as well. It's on for about what's the time? 106 minutes. Really well paced. The critics, they enjoyed it. It has an 85% Rotten Tomatoes. I believe it has a 7.6 on IMDb, I believe, or was it 7.3? I could be wrong. But yeah, and it was nominated for a lot of Saturn awards. It won for Best Horror Film, Best Director, Best Supporting Actress, Best Music by Jerry Goldsmith, Best Special Effects, and even won a Golden Lind Award. I guess it was for Jerry. It was for Joe Dante. But yeah, especially the Saturn Awards. It was a big hit, which for a time this was done in '84, and then the second film didn't come out until 1990, so 6 years later. I think originally Joe Dante didn't want to do a sequel, but they eventually got him, and the sequel came out. But sadly, the sequel, the new batch, it didn't do that well. It was a box office flop, sadly. But I enjoy the sequel. On its own terms, I enjoy the sequel. I still had fun with the movie as well. So I'll have to give that review sometime later. But the first Gremlins, I love. I love the first Gremlins. I'll say it's definitely another classic and not worth giving a thumbs up for. But even though there's issues like I said, why didn't Judge Reinhold disappearing and Feldman disappearing, but those are just nitpicks though. But I still love Gremlins. It's another all-time classic. So yeah, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next Christmas movie review. Later.